We are live.
Hello, everyone, and greetings. Welcome to another Educator Innovator Hangout on Air. It's October 21st, 2015, and today we have the opportunity to welcome educators who are LRNG Innovator Challenge grant recipients. These educators have been working over this past year and some time to expand time and space for youth interest and production-centered work in schools. I'm your host. I'm Christina Cantrell from the National Writing Project. I've been really excited to follow the work of these educators over the course of the past year and really excited that they can be with us together here so we can share with the Ed Innovator community. So thank you and welcome, everyone. The webinar today is the second in a three-part series that we're doing that features 2014 LRNG Innovator Challenge recipients. The final one will be next week on Wednesday the 28th. And at 4 p.m. Eastern. So this special series is also being shared via our partners at Connected Educator Month. So happy Connected Educator Month, everybody. Before I ask our guests to introduce themselves, let me give some quick background on the LRNG Innovator Challenge. Just share the slideshow. Okay. So just make sure that this is actually sharing. Can you see that, everybody? Great, thanks. Okay, so just some background on this project. Ed Innovator has a program of innovation challenges that support great educators who are working to create and spread creative and connected learning opportunities for young people. Our current challenge, the one that we'll be talking about today, is part of the LRNG Innovators, an effort that we originally launched through a partnership between John Legend's Show Me campaign and the National Writing Project. LRNG Innovators is now part of LRNG.org, and we're also found at the hashtag #WeAreLRNG. In 2014, when these guys started these projects, the challenge posed this question: what if learning had no bells and no walls? Through a proposal process, 14 grants were awarded to teams of educators who have been hard at work thinking about this question and developing inspiring projects and programs to expand the time and space that young people have for interest-driven and passion-driven learning in schools. You can look across a set of this work at educatorinnovator.org/LRNG 2014. We'll also put that link in the chat and tweet it out. Today, we are thrilled to have representatives from 3 of these teams with us. On the webinar today, we will hear first from the Maker Rings project that's based at the Birch School in Rock Tavern in New York, and this is actually a picture of some of the kids there at the Birch School. We'll also hear from a project called Inspired Teaching, Real-World History with the City as Classroom. This project's led by educators at the Center for Inspired Teaching in Washington, D.C. And then finally, we'll hear from Passion Projects, an engaged curriculum project based at Liberty Elementary in Riverside, California. So let me get out of this slideshow and stop sharing. Great, there I am. And so why don't we all, it'd be great if you guys could all introduce yourselves and just tell people who you are, where you are, what you do in the world, and then we'll, so everybody has a chance to hear your voices, and then we'll share each project one at a time. And I'll start with Cosby, who's on my left, and I know we're not all in the same order, so Cosby, why don't you go first?
Hey everybody, I'm Cosby Hunt. I'm the Senior Manager of Social Studies Education at Center for Inspired Teaching, and I've been there since 2010, and I'm excited to be on this call with Norma and Kate, and let's do it.
Great, excellent. All right, Kate, you're up.
My name is Kate Fox. I'm from the Birch School in Rock Tavern. I'm one of the founders and the director. We are in our 4th year. We're a small independent school based on self-directed learning, and I'm also looking forward to getting started.
And Norma.
Hello everyone, my name is Norma Rodriguez and I'm the literacy coach at Liberty Elementary in the city of Riverside in the state of California.
Great, thank you. And you still have sun in California right now. Where
Yes,
it's beautiful.
Yes,
well, thank you all for taking the time and making the time to be here today. It's really exciting to learn about your work. And if you're watching, just back to the audience today, if you're watching from our web page, we encourage you to jump into the chat room that's there. You can converse with others. You can see some links that will be posted throughout the webinar. If you're on Twitter, you can also share via the hashtag LRNG. All right, well, why don't we get started here? So, Kate, I would love for you to kick us off and tell us about maker rings. We hear a lot about maker spaces popping up in different places, but I know you guys took a sort of different approach to how you were going to think about this work in your school, so I'd love to hear about that and the background and what you've learned.
Sure. I do have a slideshow. I'm going to try to bring it in now. It'll give you a little bit of background and a lot of photographs about what we've been doing, and then we can talk a little bit more if you have some questions. So can you see it?
Not yet.
So I have it pulled into my screen.
You can see it on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you stop sharing and then start sharing again, just to see if that will... The green screen sharing. There you go. Great.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I'm from the Birch School in Rock Tavern. We were founded in 2012. At the present time, we have 30 students from 2nd grade to 12th grade with 4 full-time teachers and 2 part-time teachers. We were founded sort of on the idea that kids could have joy in learning. A lot of our core founders have backgrounds in after-school programming and summer camps, and so we were trying to bring that into a full-day program. We are unique because we're a small independent school with a foundation in connected learning practices. We really use that approach in almost all that we do. We have a huge focus on choice and self-directed learning, and as I mentioned, a lot of our key members have experience with children who are freely engaging with their learning, sometimes, you know, unself-consciously, and are pursuing their own interests by choice. So allowing children to make their own choices is a really key component of our philosophy and approach. By offering choices, we really feel that kids can more freely engage in the learning and have the motivation come from internal factors rather than, you know, having pleasing adults or doing things that because they should, really working because they really want to and they have a desire to make a contribution to the world. We've been working to help kids discover what excites them and discovering their interests and their talents. This is a core foundation of our experimental approach to learning that we've been developing over the last 4 years. We began as a hybrid program, a homeschool, part-time homeschool program, also offering a full-time program. And in the short 4 years that we've been in existence, what we've evolved into is a full-time 5-day-a-week program offering an alternative for students who were really not being served by traditional school and looking for something completely different. So we're a core foundation of our program is social and emotional competency in a community of learners. We work hard to develop a strong foundation in belonging, and I'm going to talk about some of the tools we use. The talking stick circle is something that we do every day. The talking stick is a Native American tradition. We pass the talking stick, and whoever has the stick is speaking and the other students are listening. And we use this as problem solving. We use this for daily planning. We use this for a lot of different components. So the circle is a really basic foundation of our program. Contributing ideas, listening to one another, and expressing feelings. When the stick comes to each student, it's their opportunity to contribute, so everyone feels like they belong. And this is helping us develop a community with common goals. We're using some tools to help develop connections and social and emotional safety and competency. We do Smart Moves, which is from Fable Vision. It's a kinetic brain patterning that we do with a DVD that helps kids prepare for good learning. It wakes up different neural passages, neural parts of our brain, and it's also fun to do together. We've also been borrowing some tools from the Agile learning environment, including the morning stand-up. So most days our kids are meeting together in the stand-up and talking about the work that they're doing and the work that they're hoping to do for that day, and sometimes getting support and help for that work from other students as they hear about their plans. And there's our daily talking stick circle. This is a community contact web where we met together as a circle, and we had the strings highlight our connections to one another. So as a result of some of these social and emotional components that we've instituted, the kids have developed a real strong sense of belonging and a strong sense of ownership over our space. So when we started this school year, one of the things we did was we asked them to define, how do we act when we're together? What are our shared agreements? And these are some of the things that they came up with this fall after participating in some of the activities that we'd laid out. They want to be kind and respectful and fully present, confident, courageous, constructive. These are all qualities that we were really proud of them for coming up with. Obviously, the challenge is in putting those into place. So the Maker Ring project that we were funded for was to develop small peer groups of 4 to 5 students who meet together over time, meeting and working together and using some of the tools of making. Our goal was really to incite and incent young people to produce their most creative work, with the idea that if they were in groups of collaborative groups that were establishing trust and strong communication skills, that they would be empowered to really create quality work. So some of the ways that we helped them do that was we started off with a learning styles interest survey, and we did that individually and also within each of the Maker Rings. And then we mapped that out so that we could sort of see where our group skills were in different learning styles and different interests. You can see we mapped that out, all the different areas of interest that the kids had. We also gave them a lot of group challenges, such as this, which is the longest line. So these are like problem-solving challenges that each of the groups were asked to solve together. So this was just a no-prop activity where we just said, okay, take your ring of 5 people, and your challenge is to make the longest line with just the things you have on you, in your pockets, or what that you're wearing. And it really enabled them to come up with some creative problem solving. You see some of the kids took their shoelaces out and things like that. But this is the type of activity that we try to offer to them so that they can take on that challenge, work together, use their communication skills, and hopefully feel good when they come out on the other side of that. This is another puzzle. It's an arrowhead puzzle, and this is one of the rings that was working together. And you can see that when they completed the puzzle, there was really a strong sense of group support and learning to help each other when things get hard, rather than work against each other. So in order to do this, we provided a lot of tools for making. We provided squishy circuits, little bits. We had snap circuits, a green screen. We got a 3D printer. We offered a lot of handcrafts, knitting and sewing. We did some cardboard creations. We happened to have a kitchen in our facility, so we did some cooking and some kitchen crafts, and we also used the makey-makey. So here are the kids with the conductive dough that they made in the kitchen, squishy circuits, our 3D printer. It's what one of the kids printed out the Birch name for us. We offered some weaving and some other hands-on things. We had snap circuits, and here's our green screen. green screen process. This is them working with little bits and the makey. I have a quick little video here. It's just 1 minute. Just let me know if you're not able to see it. So that kind of gives you an idea about some of how the kids interacted with the tools, which was really they learned a lot about working together and they interacted well with the tools. But we did discover some struggles, and this is what I want to talk about next. We found out that students don't always have the imagination that they need to come up with their own ideas for projects. We found that kids are struggling with the basic skills, so they're lacking a foundation in working with the maker tools. So often we would put things out and allow them to interact with them, but they weren't really sure, they didn't have a basic foundation of knowledge to empower them to work with the tools in a good way. They sometimes have a hard time doing things with their hands, and we saw that they were giving up easily. I think the contrast between creating something in Minecraft with a few clicks of your mouse or the things that kids are able to create online very easily is really contrasted with the difficulty of really putting something together in the physical world, and we came up against that a lot. So we found that we were really successful in creating a safer, more participatory social and emotional environment, and we see that that contributes to the student production of quality work. It makes it possible, but we're seeing that this alone doesn't create an environment for kids to do their best work. They also need other tools and support. Even when their plan is student chosen and has come from their passion, they still need some help to make that happen. So our evolving goals. So this fall, we looked at what we had done last spring, and we put into place a bunch of different approaches. One is that we're teaching basic skills, introductions to basic skills, facilitated by an adult teacher, such as electronics, handcrafts, and programming. We're creating more experiences for kids that help them work through their struggles and find success. So we're setting them up with more projects and puzzles that are difficult and challenging, giving them the support that they need to work through them, and then helping them experience the feeling of success and completion that once you've actually worked through it. And we're giving kids opportunities to practice teaching, so peer-to-peer teaching and teaching amongst younger students. We're also teaching students how to give and receive peer feedback. We've built that into our program. We're helping students understand that quality work is the result of many, many drafts and many iterations, many failures, and many mistakes. We're teaching students specific project planning tools as well as executive planning tools, and we're continuing to build in more mindfulness and focus tools. So this is an example of kids doing student-to-student critique and collaboration, and we went as far as gave them examples of things that they could say to each other that were kind in their peer feedback circles to help provide quality feedback for each other. So our peer advisory circles are working fairly well so far. This is an example of multiple drafts of student work based on peer feedback. We watched the video Austin's Butterfly, which is Ron Berger from Expeditionary Learning, which is some really high quality stuff about helping kids do their best work. We're directly teaching skills here. We're directly teaching some paper circuits, some origami. There's more paper circuits. We're directly teaching, we have an introduction to electronics class this year, and we're also teaching introduction to programming. We are using tools like these circuit boards are from the Exploratorium in San Francisco, and we're giving kids opportunities to teach younger kids and to mentor each other. And we're also offering real-world, hands-on adult-facilitated projects, so opportunities for the kids to work together on big projects. So this is an example of a labyrinth that we built outside the back of our building, and the labyrinth is completed. So that was a really challenging project that had a lot of ups and downs, and so we're hoping to model for them how you work through challenges like that. So, and there's our evolving goals. That's about it.
Lovely, Kate. Thank you. And I really appreciate. Oh, are you
trying to get out of screen share?
Click the green again.
Yep.
It should. Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
You're back. Great. Thank you. And it's really lovely the way that you share your evolving goals too, because I know all of us are really. I mean, that's part of this work, right? To be active learners ourselves in this work. And one of the things that I wanted to say that I forgot to say at the top of the hour was that, I'm really, for anybody tuning in, we're going to present the work. Each of us have a chance to present the work, but we invite you, that we've done it in our own context, and we invite you to really look for sort of the core pieces that we're learning, and some of those kernels that cut across our different places and settings. So now we'll move from. And just to say that you should, if questions emerge or comments, they don't have to be questions, but even if you have things that you notice or you want to share, feel free to put them in the chat or tweet about them, and we can share them back here with us and pick them up in our conversation. So with that, why don't we move, thank you, Kate, move from New York to DC and hear from Cosby about a project where I think one of the students talked about is doing history, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I went right to share screen. Can everybody see the screen?
Yep, looks great.
All right. So I'm Cosby Hunt. I work at Center for Inspired Teaching in DC, where we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. And what we are trying to do is transform the educational experience for young people. And we do that by working with their teachers. And so we have a sort of a triumvirate of a motto: model, prepare, shift. We have a teacher certification program for people new to the profession. We teach them to be teachers. They are residents in the classroom of a master teacher. We have about 5 participating schools, and then in the second year of the program, they fly off to become lead teachers in their own right. And then at the end of 2 years, they're fully accredited teachers with a year of lead teaching under their belt. We have a that's the prepare part. The model part is what real world history is. We have an instructional model that I'm going to show you in the slide in a second here. Let's see.
Cosby, do you want to put it in presentation mode?
Yes. Let's see.
Let's see, on the bottom right, sometimes there's like a little screen, or the bottom left, I'm sorry, there's like a little slideshow button.
Yeah, there should be.
Or just make the window bigger so we could see it. Huh, I wonder why it's not.
Well, you know what, I'll go manually here.
Yeah,
right.
That's great.
So anyway, you can see our instructional model. Actually, it reminds me of what Kate was saying about the importance of social and emotional learning. So at the top you see mutual respect. We have student as expert, purpose, persistence, and action. Joy, which is sometimes we forget about in education, and wide-ranging evidence of learning. So, and then all of those 5 revolve around our 4 I's: intellect, inquiry, imagination, and integrity. And so that is sort of the background of real-world history, which is a course, the first course of its kind in the city. It is a citywide history class. So there are students from both DC public schools and DC public charter schools. Some of you might be familiar with DC's education landscape. About 45% of our students are in public charter schools now, and so, but this is the first program that serves students from both the traditional DC public school system and the charter school system. The students apply to be in the program. I don't ask for GPA. I ask for them to write 5 short essays and get a teacher recommendation. In the first semester, we meet Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5 to 7 o'clock, and the goal is for them to learn the skills of historians. And the content that we focus on in the first semester is the Great Migration. So some of you might be familiar with Isabel Wilkerson's great book, The Warmth of Other Suns. I send that, after they've been accepted to the class, I send that book to them over the summer, and they read about 2/3 of the book over the summer, and then we finish the book once we meet together as a class. These are 2 of last year's students. The student on the left goes to Dunbar, which is a traditional DC public high school, and Patricia in the middle goes to, or just graduated from, a DC public charter school. You can't study the Great Migration without looking at Jacob Lawrence's Migration series, which was a series of 60 panels about the Great Migration that he painted in 1940 and 1941. It just so happens that half of those panels reside at the Phillips Collection, a museum not too far from my office. And so last year we took a field trip to see, very strange, the odd numbered panels are located at the Phillips Collection, and the even numbered panels are located at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. For the first time in, let's see, probably 10 years, all 60 panels were up in New York. So this year's class, I couldn't just take them on a simple walk to the Phillips Collection. We had to go up to New York City. So we are, thanks to the generosity of the Educator Innovator Grant, we got on a bus and we went up to New York City to see this exhibit, One-Way Ticket, which has the whole 60 panels plus music and art, other art devoted to the Great Migration. And here's a picture of the group. It was a mix of not only this year's students, but also some parishioners from a nearby Baptist church, some of whom we will be interviewing. The major project of the first semester is an oral history project about Black Washingtonians who moved here before 1970. And so I offered some spots on the bus to some of the people who said they would be willing to be interviewed. So it was nice to be viewing this artwork intergenerationally. I guess I'm the middle generation. This is one of our first field trips of this year. We went to a local cemetery to talk about that cemetery and sort of its place in the Great Migration and its place in DC history. It was pretty neat. I think probably Norma and Kate have done some different forms of inquiry-based education. I took them to the cemetery. I gave them almost no introduction. I gave them 15 minutes to walk around and write down questions that they had about the cemetery. And then I gave them some documents related to the cemetery, and they sort of had to piece together the story of the cemetery themselves. This picture doesn't really show it, but this is one of the oldest cemeteries in the city, but it is it's in very bad condition. And so that's part of what the students are probably shocked by when they get there. As I said, we read The Warmth of Other Suns. Last year, some of the students got to meet the author, Isabel Wilkerson, when she came to the high school where we conduct the class. Again, the students come from about 10 different high schools, and it just by blind luck, one of the teachers in the school where we conduct the class in the evenings, one of the teachers who teaches during the day, has a relationship with a group that brought her to speak to his class. So that was neat. He let me sneak in 5 students that day. One of the highlights of last year's class, and again, this is the second year of the class, was a Paideia seminar that we did with students from a local private school about Ta-Nehisi Coates' article in The Atlantic, The Case for Reparations. I thought it would be appropriate to sort of broaden the circle of who was in the conversation about this article. Everyone in my class is black and brown, and the private school was more of a mix, and I thought that an article like The Case for Reparations, the discussion would be better if we included, various incomes and also various ethnicities. Maybe the highlight of the first semester last year was when we brought together students and their interviewees to see the Phillips collection, to look at the art together, and then we went to the basement and we had students do their interviews there in the basement of the Phillips collection, and it happened to be my birthday, so it was kind of a neat thing to do on my birthday, and this was certainly a highlight. The students, I think maybe this was the first night when they really felt like, okay, I'm becoming a historian. This is Kelly recording her interview on her phone. All of the students record their interviews, transcribe their interviews, and they write 2 papers about the interviews. One is called a contextualization paper, and one is called an analysis paper. In December of last year and then December of this year, we have something called an internship options fair. Probably the main reason why students sign up for this class is because in the second semester, each of them gets an internship at a local museum or historic site. And as you can imagine, in Washington, D.C., we have a few of those. So in December, staffers from the different museums and historic sites come to Cardozo High School, where we have class, and each museum interviews 3 or 4 students. And then after that night, I do some complicated calculus with each museum and historic site to figure out which student will be interning with them. The idea is to match the interests, the students in whom the museums were interested in with the museums that the students were interested in, so that students are going to the places where they'd like to go and the museums are getting the students they'd like to have. I'll show you a list of the different participating museums at the end, but this was another night when I think the students really were seeing the big vision of the class. There are plenty of classes where we're looking at documents about the Great Migration, and the class feels like maybe a traditional history class, and I think this was one of those nights when they saw, oh, okay, this is where this class becomes very different. These are the students who interned on the National Mall. The National Mall is interesting because the students don't show up to the same cubicle every time. They might, if you're interning on the National Mall, one day you might spend at the Washington Monument, the next day you might be at the FDR Memorial, and so you have to be willing to do some do some walking and be out in the cold sometimes, because these internships start at the end of January and they go to the end of May, and not as cold as Rock Tavern, New York, but DC gets pretty cold in the winter. One of the cool things that came out of our after our Paideia seminar with the students from the private school, they decided that they wanted to keep talking with each other. So informally, we met on a Saturday. We went to see the movie Selma together, and then we got together in the atrium of the National Portrait Gallery, and they had a discussion about the film that also sort of morphed into a discussion about Black Lives Matter. This was before the riots in Baltimore, but sometime around the time when Eric Garner was killed, and of course Trayvon Martin. So there was a lot to talk about. Michael Brown. This is a list of last year's students and the places where they interned. In some cases, a site is willing to take just one student. In other cases, they are willing to take on more than one student. I'm happy to say that Ford's Theater has joined the list of internship sites, as has the National Archives. So we have more students in this year's class, and more students, and so there'll be more internships. One of the internship sites is Woodrow Wilson House, which is the house that Woodrow Wilson lived in after he was president. It's actually not far from the Phillips Collection. It's near DuPont Circle. And you see the quote here from Bob Inholm, who's the executive director of Woodrow Wilson House. And his intern, Ahmad Woodard, a great young man who literally every day to school he wears a bow tie. And one of these days he'll actually learn to tie them rather than doing the clip-on thing. The first semester of the class is an honors class, so students get a little bump in their GPA. That's the part of the class where we meet Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5 to 7. The second semester are the internships. So we actually only meet as a group once a month because they're doing 100 hours of internship. The other major focus of the second semester is National History Day. So each student does a National History Day project that is related to their internship site. Two of the students, let's see if I can go back and find Kelly. Two of the students, here's Kelly. Kelly and her partner, they won first place in the citywide History Day competition for their documentary about W.E.B. Du Bois. Both young ladies were doing their internship at the Library of Congress. So you could say they had an unfair advantage because of the resources that were available to them, and that's the whole point. Going off of what Kate had said about sort of evolving goals, I think there should be there's no reason why there couldn't be a real-world physics class or real-world sociology. This class is an elective based on the fact that 40 to 50 kids over the last 2 years have signed up to be in a class that meets in the evenings after they've had a long day at school. Tells me that when you're presenting something that's rigorous but of interest to students, they will do what they have to do to make it happen. Many of the students travel from across town, and so it just tells me that we need more opportunities like that. Like the whole point of LRNG is to expand time and space, and real-world history is an indication that students will take advantage when it's presented.
Thank you, Cosby. And yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, it's amazing the way that you thought about time and space and the city as the classroom is really an exciting engagement, and the way that youth interest is connecting to that space. So it's great to see the kids too, and you guys working together. Oh, now I can just see myself. So okay, good. Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, let's continue to to ask ourselves what are the things that are cutting across, and I love how you're making connections to what Kate shared as you were sharing there and to our evolving goals in these projects. And I know Norma works with a team at her school who's really committed to supporting their students' individual passion for learning in everything they do. So Norma, we'd love to hear from you and what you all are doing there in Riverside, California.
Okay, so let me share my screen with you. Do you see it?
Right now, there we see it, yeah. There you go. Great.
Okay, so we are Liberty Elementary, and our project is Passion Projects, and we are in California, like I mentioned before. And for us, this grant, the LRNG, came about from a bigger picture of us moving forward with our journey with personalized learning. We looked at expanding either time or space, so we went the route of space. And so the first thing that happened was teachers had to interview their students. So it starts with a conversation. We have kindergarten students, teachers, all teachers getting a day to interview their students to get to know them, kind of like what Kate mentioned with her students. So we asked students what they like, what are their interests, and things like that. So we have this survey called Design for Learning Survey. So in that interview, we talked to students and asked them about what and how do they access information the best. How do they, once they get that information, how do they engage with the information the best? Do they like to manipulate things? Do they like to write things down? What are their preferences? Then from there, once they've learned the information, they've done something with it, how do they prefer to express? And this comes from the UDL model that kind of looks at that in terms of how do kids access, engage, or express with information. Also with the interviews, we are looking at what are their interests, what do they want to be and aspire to be, and their passions. Also discussing their strengths and their areas of development. So all of those things, kind of the teacher getting to know the student. And kind of like with something that Cosby mentioned, it's matching students with their interests. And so that's basically what ours is all about. And so we asked them, if you could do something all day long, what would it be? And so that is what they would love to do. So when we said expand the space, we started off really small, and with the LRNG money, we were able to expand our space. So we started with a green screen station, and we are a school of no excuses. We belong to a network of No Excuses University that instills in students the right tools to go to college. So when they are ready to go and they make that decision, the decision is theirs. But we are instilling that from TK on. So the green screen here, you see that we start off with some photos. And on the picture at the bottom right, you see students that are from the classroom of Mrs. Carroll, one of our teachers, and her college is Hawaii. So her students transport to Hawaii and take pictures there. So that's just one fun way of doing it. Then they move on to from photos to actual videos, and so they use those tools and they upload what they're learning, use the green screen, but now we use WeVideo, which is an editing software for videos, and then they share them. So on the top left, you see some students, they were learning about the monarch butterflies, so they made a quick video on their learning about that. On the bottom right, you see one of the students, they were doing a Alice in Wonderland kind of thing, and she actually made a commercial to share out with students. So that's one of the spaces. These kids, you just show them one thing and they just create amazing things because they're passionate about it. This is only for students that want to do that. We don't make kids do anything they don't want to do. So the next space that we have, so that was the green screen. Another area is a garden. So if you see on the top left, there is a tiny space of dirt that students that were into gardening, we asked them what was something they liked to do, and surprisingly, it was a bunch of sixth grade boys. And in knowing and talking to them, it's because their fathers are either landscapers or gardeners themselves, and they just enjoy doing that. So planning came to be. We went and we went down to the nearest Lowe's, and we did some filming there with the filming crew that came, and we're excited to see the video. We haven't seen it yet, but the process and our journey with the garden. So these are some pictures of the planning process. Then they chose the plants that they wanted and everything. So now this is what our garden looks like. This was just a few months, and this is what it looks like now. But because it's so small, we are now expanding. So the funds will allow us to add a second garden. So you can see on the left that space is now being used for that. You see a person from the district that is going to, he's putting up a fence, and the bags that you see there are mulch that was donated by a local nursery, and so we're going to start having the kids prep the dirt there. On the right hand side, you see the lines. That's going to be the water source, and this is we're using funds to add a second garden. And the third space that we have is the maker space. So on the left-hand side, we had this area which was like a dump ball closet that we cleaned out and made for our students that like to tinker. And so those students that like to tinker, we're giving them similar tools that that Kate mentioned. So that one there is the Lego education. We also had, it's multi-age, so it's based on the interest. So that's why we titled it Passion Projects. So those are just a few of the spaces that we've added, and we were able to do that with LRNG funds. Other passion projects that we have are Google CS First Coding, and we do those every day. And we once again ask teachers to identify students and match them based on their interests. So on Mondays, we have kids that are doing fashion and design. On Tuesdays, we have game design, Wednesday storytelling, Friday music and sound, and Friday art. Those are all coding classes with the emphasis on that particular theme. And everything is done through Scratch, a program, but Google has provided this free of charge. We also do some digital literacy, and we're excited to add an origami club that's going to start on Monday for our 4th through 6th grade, and then on Thursday for our 2nd through 3rd. So for us, these are the spaces that we've been able to expand, and as we learn more about students and more interests, we're going to expand even more, maybe some cooking classes and things like that. Very similar ideas to what Kate's project is doing as well. So we want to expand this, and we're doing it in a public school setting versus the unique school that she has. So those are my slides, and Let me get out of here. Okay, so I don't know if you have any questions, but that's where we're at right now, and we're excited to continue serving the students with stations and clubs and in passion projects that that match what the students want to learn.
Thank you, Norma. And those are beautiful photos. I know Cosby had a question that he brought up in the chat.
And I'm not sure where to see the chat. I thought I was seeing the blue bar, but that's not the one, so I'm not sure. What is the question?
Oh, hey Norma. It's just a question about the garden. Do they sort of study what they can and can't plant in that climate and then decide what they want to plant?
So we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate that the person heading it on, she's actually a parent volunteer with so much knowledge that she understands the type of work we're doing, and so she allows for them to kind of run the club with her as the guide, but she puts a lot of she does a lot of research, she has a lot of knowledge, and so she wants them to learn every little aspect of how to make a successful garden, and that garden be ongoing. And so I myself cannot tell you anything about gardening, so when she tells me things, I said, I'm glad you're the one working with them and not me, because they're problem solving to make our weather in Riverside is very it's very hot. It's very to plants I kill plants. So to water them a specific way, a certain amount of water and all that, she's teaching them all of that. And if you saw the picture where we're doing the second garden, we're doing it from scratch, total scratch. And so she got the clippings and all of that, tree trimmings from a local gardener that donated it to us. But now we're so excited. She's looking around the school to see where else we can plant, because we're doing more with that little space right now. We're expanding to the new space, but we want to go beyond that and match students that are not just into gardening, but also students that want to extract DNA from the fruit that they're planting and things like that. So it's expanding right now. It's just, you saw the first pictures that it was just unused space that they tried to attempt to grow something and didn't keep it up. Those 6th graders are now at the middle school, and so they're coming to kind of check up on their garden, and now we have other students that are maintaining it. And so we have girls now, and one of them newly added. The reason she was added was because the teacher had that interview with her. She shared that she not too long ago came from Mexico, and she misses her grandfather, who she used to garden with. And because of that conversation, the teacher said, "Do you know we have a garden?" And she said no. She took her to the garden, and she asked her, and now she's part of the garden club.
Kate, oh, got an echo. Sorry. Can you hear me? Great. Kate, I know you had some thoughts too about what Norma's talking about and picking up on some of what you shared. Do you want to jump in here?
Sure. I was listening to you talk about having that parent, and I think that sometimes having an adult mentor who is really committed and knowledgeable is really key, because sometimes we can't just depend on the kids to come up with that stuff by themselves, or like we found, they tend to give up really quickly without having something happen. But I was wondering, How do you organize what part of the day the kids engage with those activities that you had laid out? I saw you had the days of the week.
So the way that I schedule it is, this is them leaving the classroom. And so first off, we have to respect the volunteers and their hours they're willing to give. So we coordinate it with the parent. And so she's the parent that does Wednesday mornings where it doesn't conflict with anything else. That's huge. And the kids can only, it's only 1 hour per week. And so when we match them to the different passion projects, we don't want them missing out on other stuff in the classroom, but they learn from what they're doing outside of the classroom, and then they use that information and they bring it back in, and they enhance what they're doing, or they show other kids what they're learning and how that translates back into the classroom. But it's 1 hour per week. So all the Monday through Friday, the ones that I said for the coding, they go out 1 hour per week. It's that same hour. For the garden, it's Wednesdays from 8:30 to 9:30. And now our origami, this parent, because she has a lot of background and she provides a lot of services, she's able to, she's the one that's going to be doing the origami. So she has several degrees and in her background, and so we're just tapping into everything. And so she's going to do that with, she's done it with middle school, but now she's going to do it with little ones with origami. And so we're tackling it that way. So we're scheduling it. I have some tech guys, 2 tech guys that do the computer stuff, but it's just organizing it and give them an hour.
This is great, and I really wish we had more time to talk. We're close to the hour here. So what I was thinking was that maybe we can each have a chance to share something that we're thinking about when we think across these projects. I know that in many ways this is the first time we've had a chance to share with each other, so it's really, there's just so much to talk about. And one of the things that I was thinking about, and we were sort of thinking about it a little bit, was this connection that you were talking about, Norma, like how the connection between sort of the traditional school curriculum and or the academic goals of the kids and their passion projects, and how you're really thinking about those together and the way they connect together. And so that's one of the questions that I'm interested in us maybe talking about more as a group, is how do those things connect? How does maybe change some of our perspectives on what we think of as, you know, purely academic, or, you know, I'm just sort of curious about that. So that's a question that comes up for me when I hear you all talk, and I'm really interested to think more with you about that. So anybody else just want to pop in with sort of last thoughts or comments before we end today?
I mean, I would just say that right now DC is engaged in some thinking around high school credit flexibility, and so you know, I think there's going to be more examples of personalized learning that ends up being counting for credit in the future in DC. Although it's very messy, contentious work trying to get away from the Carnegie unit. I don't know if does everybody use Carnegie units? Anyway, that's what we use in DC, and we're trying to get away from the idea of seat time being the main determinant of credit.
I agree with Cosby in the sense that it is messy. I went to a conference and they mentioned that we're assessing the wrong end of the student, and so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, the seat time is not doesn't matter. It should be about what they're able to do. And so for us, we're going to move into, as a school, trying to explore on ageless, gradeless. And so with these passion projects, that's kind of our first attempt in terms of the coding sessions. Those are 2nd through 6th grade. We do PE, where we have them by stations, by what they want to, how they want to play, or the different sports and things like that. So we're exploring it in different ways, but ageless, gradeless is where we're headed.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I agree. I think that that all the work that we're doing is really, that you're doing and that Cosby is doing, is helping us, rethink how kids achieve that competency. And we're sort of all in different places in that spectrum. We are ageless, gradeless, and we're looking at ways to measure that competency and how to measure what they're doing, because sometimes the end product isn't really what it's about the process, and so how do we measure that also? So that's right, some of our challenges, but I've really enjoyed the conversation with both of you, and I wish that we can continue. I know we're going to hopefully see each other soon at the National Writing Project meeting, and I'm really looking forward to that. We have a lot in common and a lot of challenges to share and learn from one another, so it's really exciting. I'm so honored to be a part of this group of people working in this direction, so thank you for the opportunity.
Well, that's a great note to close on, so thank you, Kate. I believe that we will be seeing each other at the NWP annual meeting. For those of you watching who may be there, there's going to be a roundtable at 8:30 on the 19th, where everybody will have a chance to talk more about their projects and some of the key questions emerging and discuss that work with each other. And then we will continue to share and publish about some of these sort of cross-cutting themes that cut across that we are learning, because this is such important work. And I just wanted to quickly share a few final slides, because next week on the 28th, here, let me get this, sorry. There you go. On the 28th, we will be hearing from 3 more of the teams who have been also tackling the same question of time and space for interest-driven and passion-driven learning in schools. The webinar next week will be at 4 p.m. Eastern, and we'll hear from the Making Our Worlds project based in Charlotte, North Carolina, the Creating After School and STEM Labs work based in Silver City, New Mexico, and Tilden Talks, that's based at Tilden High School in Chicago, Illinois. So again, we'll hear from a range of people in different places about ways that they've been thinking about this work and taking on some of these key questions. I want to invite you to also watch last week's webinar that's archived at the Educator Innovator website, that also a few teams are sharing the work that they've been doing and some of their key questions. And also to visit the educatorinnovator.org website. Ooh, sorry. We have announced that we will be offering a 2015 LRNG Innovators Challenge. The RFP will launch in early November, so you should come to the website and sign up to get more information about that. This challenge will ask teachers to reach beyond the classroom door and develop partnerships and programs that connect in and out of school learning and create opportunities for youth to follow their interests and do ambitious work across those spaces. And actually, you've heard some of that work today too. So find out more at this webpage. And finally, to keep abreast of future opportunities from Educator Innovator and its partners, we sign up because we have a monthly newsletter, we have a blog, and you can follow us on Twitter at innovates_ed. So, and that, oh, there we go, okay. So just thank you everyone for being here today and for tackling these really important issues, and we'll see you in about a month to continue to discuss this work and share back out with the larger community about some of the things we're thinking about across. So have a nice evening, everyone.